Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, journalists, any people putting stuff out in the Bronx. In our second segment, we're going to go to one of our favorite segments over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to visit with one of the most, I don't want to say gregarious, one of the most colorful, one of the most engaging, one of the most wonderful people, performers in the Bronx. But first, we are going to up to Boston to Boston University. She is a reporter intern with City Limits, and she is currently a undergraduate student at Boston University. Let's say a good evening to Mariam Hydara. Nice to see Mariam Hydara. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
So let's just get started. You are the class of 2024, so I did the math, and that would mean you're a junior. What made you say, gee, I'd like to do journalism?
Well, I honestly think I've told myself that I want to do journalism for the last several years of my life. From high school, I was involved in my school's newspaper. And on a foundational sense, I simply enjoy talking to people and I enjoy gathering and sharing information. So every person I told this to told me, okay, journalism. And I was
It
like,
sounds like
oh,
one and one equals two. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I can try that out." So that's really at the core where it lies. I genuinely just enjoy human interaction
Um,
and to
how much I've asked so many people this question, and even myself this question: how much does or did or does living in the Bronx, because you are from the Bronx, how much does that contribute to your interest in kind of covering stuff and telling a story? I mean, I could tell you what my reason is, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it. I'm guessing that the Bronx plays a part back there in what you want to tell.
It definitely does play a part. I think about all of the stories that I see around me every day when I go outside and see neighbors hanging around on the street corners or talking to people or throwing block parties. I think about how this is what I want to spotlight if I was a journalist and I want to focus on uplifting the individuals in my own community instead of focusing on a more negative light that I feel like
Well, yep,
portray.
the way that we've been portrayed for generations. I mean, I get it, and I hear the same thing from so many different young journalists like yourself.
Mhm.
Um, you now I want to shout out to my friend Jean Marie, who's the editor over there at City Limits. The intern program provides and provided you with a wonderful opportunity. Now, did you come down here to New York to write those stories, or because in the modern world you can cover anything from anywhere, you just did the work up in Boston? Because we're going to focus on a story, folks, just for people watching, about student homelessness, which I thought was mind blowing. But just tell me a little bit about the intern program and the process at City Limits.
Right. So it is completely virtual at this moment in time. I am working remotely. I could easily come down to New York, considering that is where I live, but it's also easy to do things remotely. A lot of sources are more than enthusiastic about talking to you over the phone or through email or answering any questions that you have through more modern means. So it is remote. But I've been working, my history with City Limits is interesting because I did even more youthful program with them last year when no 2 years ago when I
When
was
you were still in high school?
senior,
Oh.
exactly. So I did that, their Clarify program for youth reporters, and we was writing stories about COVID-19, and that's where
Wow.
I was just starting out and learning what it even meant to write inverted pyramids and reaching out to sources and matters such as those. And then this past summer, I worked with them again through the Emma Bowen Foundation, funny enough, because they are a partner with Emma Bowen. So I was like, oh my God, I've already worked with these people. This is amazing. And
Well,
they asked me to stay for the fall semester. So,
I hope many of my friends and colleagues who are editors and are in the position to look at young journalists, we know that you're tied up till 2024, but considering the training that you've gotten, which began when you were in high school, I think and having, from my point of view, having a young Bronxite want to cover our stuff and present us in a realistic and positive way, you get my vote. So, congratulations for what you've been doing. Now, let's talk real serious stuff. You wrote this article, which definitely caught my eye, and the headline was More New York City students were homeless last year, even as enrollment declined. And it goes on, though total enrollment fell by 3.2%, the number of homeless identifying students increased by 3.3%. And the numbers, I have to tell you, they're just heartbreaking. 104, according to your reporting, 104,000 students who attend public schools are homeless. That is just a startling number. And of course, I shouldn't say, of course. You see how terrible it is? The highest rates of that homelessness, of student homelessness, were in our borough, the Bronx, in the Southwest West Bronx, with instead of one of every 10, one of every five students identified as not having a place to live. Let's just start in the reporting of it. Was this something you were assigned, or did you just kind of find this and say, I better write about it because it needs to be told?
right. This was something that I was assigned. Jean Marie pretty much came to me and she was like, there was this report done about the amount of homeless students there are in New York City. So go ahead and write about it. But as soon as she shared this information with me, I was like, wow, this is kind of mind blowing. And now I actually like eager to get this story out. But
Mhm.
yes, it was something that
Yeah, and the thing, and you personalized it so appropriately. There was a student who I think was sheltered in some form in Brooklyn and had to go to Staten Island for their schooling, which, I mean, going across the ferry or somehow in presumably public transit across the Tappan Zee Bridge, in the morning, and then getting to school late and nobody having any care that and giving them just mark them late. I mean, talk about starting from behind the starting line. That is so I don't even have a question attached to it, but it just was startling. Is there anything you talked about 5,500 people, children who are unsheltered. They're living in 5,500 living in cars, parks, or abandoned buildings. Anything else about it that struck you that is worth talking about here on this? I mean, it's just mind blowing.
it's the concept as a whole is insane, as you mentioned. I think it's interesting when you look at the borough breakdown. You already mentioned that the Bronx was the borough with the most amount of homeless students, and then Staten Island was the one with the least, and then Queens somehow increased the most since last year. So I find it
So
interesting.
in Queens, there was more homelessness.
Yes, yes, but unexpectedly so, like,
Uh,
um
well, listen, there are so many factors, whether it be, you could start with poverty, obviously, but the price of rents, available affordable housing. I mean, it's a trickle down of 1,000 things. Um, you reported dropouts are more likely. I mean, we're in, what I was thinking of? Out of the 100,000, so that's 1 out of 10. If you have a class of 35, which 35 New York City public school students in any grade is insane, but there are classes of 35, that means three or four of them in that class are homeless.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the teachers, God bless them, they want to teach. Uh, you know, I don't even miss. I can't even think about it. You also reported that they're looking to get DHS to provide assistance in the shelters. In other words, I would guess enrichment of some sort or homework help. Do you get the sense that that's forthcoming? I mean, that would have to come out of a budget from the city council, of course, and then approved by the mayor. Do you get a sense that there is some attention from the city to this problem?
I would definitely hope so because
Okay.
that solution has been talked about since last year's report originally
Hmm.
came out. So by now, yes, they should be on their motion to allowing more support both in shelters and in schools because it's really baffling that there are this many students that are struggling with housing and yet not as much support for things as simple as homework help like you said because kids who aren't homeless are already getting this type of help with tutors at more funded schools. So you would think that these exacerbated circumstances would bring additional assistance such as those.
Yeah.
It is baffling because
It-
I think about how hard it was to simply go to school when I did have a home and
a place to live, a fundamental thing. You know what I think of now, and the pressures to have. Where's my phone? One of these,
Mhm,
and you have to have this working, or you have to be able to write something. They're doing very little paperwork. Everything is on a computer. What are you going to do? Ask that child who's riding from Staten Island to Brooklyn to stop at the library on the way home and
mhm.
wait for a computer to use? I mean, the challenges are immense. We just got about a minute left. Our guest, Mariam Hydara, who is a student intern, believe it or not, with City Limits, and has written what I think is a very important piece. I guess you can appreciate that if you wrote this story, it gives that funding a better chance to happen,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I would think that in your education, you understand this is what I'm actually trying to do. Do you have anything you're working on next, or are you just working on your studies? We got about 30 seconds ago. You got anything you're working on next, or are you going to follow this up, or I don't know what's going on?
I'm waiting on new assignments to come rolling in. I would love to do a follow-up story on this homeless student story, though. I would love to follow a specific homeless student throughout their day.
And tell that story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what that
Listen, Mariam Hydara, congratulations to City Limits and my friend Jean Marie Everly, who is the editor over there and who has this wonderful program so that we can really get smart, capable young journalistic students to do their thing. And I'm telling my audience, remember the name Mariam Hydara. You're going to read her stuff for a very long time. And we're so proud of you representing us up there at Boston University.
Thank you so much.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Mariam, for joining us and good luck in your career. We know that you will be able to do a lot of great things here in the borough of the Bronx. We hope editors get the idea that this is one of the bright young reporters on her way up. And what we'll do is we'll take a short break and we're going to come back with the one and only Tim Moss, a segment we recorded in October. We'll be right back with that. Don't go away.